Yeah.
We're ready.
Right, well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the March 3rd, 2026 Victor Conservation Board meeting. Couple things on the agenda tonight. We'll get right into the woods at Valentown, the first item. Applicant is requesting preliminary approval for 71 for sale townhouse units and one 4-story apartment building with 100 units within sections 2 through 4. This will also include 2 homeowners association lots for this project. This is a project that we've seen before, I think with section 1, as well as some other conversations. And I think we have James from BME to walk us through it. So if you would maybe just give us an overview. It's been a while since we've seen this iteration of the project. So maybe just give us an overview.
So I'll give you a whole little mini history of this, because obviously this has been, project's been going on since in 2003, conception originally. So we first did a full DEIS, FEIS for the project for Seeker back in, starting in 2023, finished in 2005 or so. That was for all of High Point Business Park. So this included all 3 of the office buildings, all of High Point Drive, all of the Starbucks, the Olive Garden, all of High Street Extension, so the North Bay is now Grand Bar, all of the retail and everything down there. It was all part of that overall PDD. This is the last section that hasn't been developed yet. This has always been kind of the goal was to transition from the more commercial space down to the residential space. So originally with the project, way back in 2005, at one point, this was 71 or 72 townhouse lots through these sections. And when we went through PDD amendments back in 2017, 2018, when the zoning for this was modified for the apartment unit project, which then we also incorporated part of the Forest Park PDD in the north west corner of the site, what's most of section 4 now, was brought into our PDD. The Rinaldi's who owned the business park at the time acquired some more land. So the project grew a little bit in scope, I think by about 5 or 6 acres. And so we expanded a little bit of the use and development area at that time as well. So at that point, we had a 300 unit apartment building, or 300 unit apartment complex approximately. I think it was like 295 or so. With some recent changes to market rates, obviously COVID, development costs, kind of the ongoing battle of development. This project's been kind of shelved a little bit, put on hold, especially like during COVID, right after the apartments got approved and then construction prices went crazy. Some of the economics started kind of faltering with the development with all the amenities. So back in, I think 2002, 2003, the property was transferred to Commercial Street Partners from the Rinaldi's entity. Commercial Street Partners is for conjunction with Krista Development, things of that nature. And at that time, we came back and got section 1, the southern portion of the site. The northern portion of the site, we had basically kept as is at that time, which was the apartment units. This last summer, 2025, we went back to the town board again for modifications to the PDD again to go back to the 70. This is a laser pointer too. So the northern 3 areas there, at that point, we went back and modified this. So it was again down to 71 townhouse for sale lots, as well as a 4-story 100 unit apartment building. And basically the idea was we're gonna create some more marketability for the for sale lots. It allows some of the capital to get returned faster to make the project viable. And then we were taking basically all the density from the larger apartment 3-story units up on the tops of the hill, shoved it into the 4-story 100 unit apartment, which sits in a valley. So it's basically under screen. You won't have visibility from public right of ways with that. And then we also knocked the density down for the total project down by 39 total units. So we were at 294 was the last approved thing. Now we are down 39 units to 250 total. So we knocked the density down in the northeast and northwest townhouse sections, and then kind of combined it into the apartment buildings. So this is the northeast corner of the site. So this is sections 2, section 3. So section 2 is all the townhouse units to the right, and then section 3 is the larger building there. Basically, this is gonna be extended off private drives. They're gonna come up where the T is, in the darker area. That is where it turns and goes up the hill about 10% way up to the top. And then we've got kind of a flatter area at the top of the hill. And the apartment building area right now, that's all been cleared. We brought in Bill from our second construction. There's a little bit more clearing in there, but for the most part, you can walk right into that. You'll get an idea of that building and the surrounding context. So this is section 4. So this is before the property kind of cut off where we only had, I think, like three, 4 unit townhouses in the back. So most of this is at lands that were added when we went through modifications in 2018 approximately. This used to have 3 21-unit apartment buildings up here, and now we're down to 40 townhouse lots. So we're knocking down 23 units. So really trying to get the density down closest to the, the one neighbor that we get a proximity to for space of development. Big change from, besides that is the height. We're going from a 3-unit, 48-foot max apartment building down to a 2-story townhouse. So something that's way more context. There's the setbacks, the closest townhouse units that we have are the ones that are right to the east of the adjacent neighbor's house. The buildings are set back at 50. Every setback for townhouses in the town code is 40. So we're trying to provide a little bit of additional detail. Obviously, we're content with 10% road grades coming up the site, as well as trying to fit in, gradings at, nothing steeper than 2-on-1, but really trying to grade out flatter where we can for mowing maintenance. And then we also have a stormwater facility that's between kind of that little southern notch. So after that drive and those visitor parkings, the slope kind of goes down a little bit, and we've got a little bioretention in there. The way that we're handling stormwater mitigation for this is what we agreed to, was approved by the DEC for methodology back in 2018, which is basically we kind of opened notice in the time for the project for all the items apart since like 2006 or 7 when we first started this. It's been maintained, it's been open. The stormwater facility in the center area between these sections, there's also a little portion at the northern end of the loop that's not blue. That's an infiltration basin. That thing infiltrates more runoff than would be all our requirements. We also have the stormwater facility down at the southern end of section 1, which is a standard wet pond. However, when we opened that permit, we obviously had a certain amount of impervious and disturbance that we were allocated. So what we're doing is we're providing new bioretention practices for the increase in that. And that was the agreement that we came to with Bella, and then we did verify it with the DEC at the time. So, we've got so much 3 or 4 acres of increased impervious and this much additional disturbance compared to the 2005 design with the townhouses. Anything we added for section 4, we're providing additional water quality. If we were doing this from scratch, I wouldn't propose any of those. I would just say that infiltration basin does it all and we're done. But we're trying to do what, the intent, treat stuff at the source and improve the water quality, obviously, from some of the areas like the drives and stuff that we can capture easily. You guys have the benefit of kind of looking at some of the exhibits and stuff that I had prepared from the planning board. Obviously, I apologize for not being here at the last meeting to go through this. This is the balloon study that we did back for the 2018. So the layout you can see there, that is the apartment building layouts with 3 stories. This, the next 2 balloons are going to be location 5, which is the one up by on Turk Hill, and then locate the next one, which is kind of just north of High Point 300, looking at the ones off of Valentine Road. I don't have one looking at this. So the existing neighbor's house, if you can't quite see it, but there is a balloon kind of tucked in the middle north of that building. That balloon is flown at 48-foot height, and at from the finished grade of where the building is to get a true representation of where the top of that 48-foot building is. Again, we're going down to a 2-story townhouse. The building is going to be behind those trees. And so you're basically going to have a pretty well screened view from this. You're basically going to see
That's a fall picture or some kind of winter, so there's no
vegetation. And this is the same woods you see everywhere in Victor. You're driving down 490 and you look up at Woodcliff. It's mature deciduous trees. You can see through them in the winter a lot of times. There's not really, you're not going to create more screening, but in summer it's opaque. You don't see through it at all. Here's a zoomed in view. You can kind of see it's yellow. It's just a little high of that second light pole there. Right. This is just north of on High Point Drive, just north of building 300, looking into kind of section 3 in that little clearing area. Section 2 will be up on the right. A good reference point is that overhead power line tower there. That sits, you can see that on our cover sheet view or any of our plans. That's this tower right here. So we're gonna be a little bit behind that even, with kind of just the ends of these couple buildings here. So you can see that one tower there. Yep, so there'll be a little bit of a view in there. Basically, we have a stormwater facility south of us, kind of that little private drive stub. And then we just need to grade for that fire truck turnaround out. So we're kind of just chasing our tail down the hill a little bit. But again, these balloons in here, those were flown at 48 feet height from the finished floor. I believe the math, when adjusting for everything, I believe at the top of our 4-story building is a roughly 12 to 13 feet higher than that. So I'll give you a context. So we still anticipate this, basically being below the tree heights. The top of the 4-story building is basically the finished floor of the townhouse units up in section 2. So the goal really is to try and preserve as much of that vegetation kind of in there as possible. You can kind of see where the little stub kind of already is cleared out and it starts going up the hill. That's basically the road stub up the hill. So we're gonna try and save some trees on the south side of the screen, and we're gonna try and save as many trees in the interior of that to help screen everything. I will be taking down a little bit more trees probably. The Farmington Water and Sewer has changed their stance on their sanitary sewer manholes, and they no longer want them in the road at all for us. So we're gonna have to put them in the shoulder and basically create a little bit more of a flat area, unfortunately. So I'm gonna do that internal to the site as much as I can between the sections as opposed to the screening that's going to capture a little bit more. This is a photo location map that I did mainly to show the tree density, something the planning board asked about during sketch plan for Mr. Roweda's house. That's the adjacent neighbor. I also took a couple pictures in section 2 and 3. So basically this is going to start up in section 4, kind of work around that neighboring property, and then have some other photos here. So this is sitting at lot 32, looking basically straight west at that neighbor's house. The property line is about 50 feet away from where I'm standing. And then the neighbor back there has got a good, it's about 150 feet or so to his house from the property line.
This is a townhouse. This would be the view.
This
from
is
the
the
townhouse.
view from the house. Yeah, I've got a couple of these little exhibits. These I don't have on a slideshow if you want to. So these just show some rough dimensions up there. So right now I'm talking, this view is from lot 32. This view is between 35 and 36. Kind of same idea looking over at the house.
And how much of those trees do you have to take? Do you have to take any more of that out?
So I'm standing at the building corner approximately.
Okay.
There's about 50 feet to our property line. We're probably gonna take about, they have a 20-foot backyard space that's gonna be there if they want to do a patio or whatever. And then I'm gonna have at least another 20 feet for storm sewer drainage and possibly private utilities, which they did. So I'm gonna take out most of that to the property line. One of the things that we're gonna be looking at with the board is screening mechanisms for this. There's a couple of things that we're thinking about is we might just put an 8-foot high board fence for them, just along this property line and kind of wrap it around a little bit to the south. We're also gonna do some kind of like noise screening for enclosures for the HVAC systems back there. So that way, if they don't fire up, they don't, bother them too much. I know it's 200 feet. It really shouldn't be an issue, especially with any existing vegetation at all. Even bare should help break the noise up, but just to be cognizant of the neighbor. This one is roughly back of lot 45 and a looking kitty corner here.
So those trees have to come out.
Yeah, like so this tree in the foreground. And we are gonna do a sidewalk with the planning board. I know Lisa is gonna coordinate with you guys. If you guys join us, I'll have a KMC file. We can walk around and be like, I'm standing at this property line, and you can have a pretty good idea of exactly what the clearing limits are and what we're talking about. This is from the edge of lot 48. And looking over there, that shed is on our property by a little bit. That does encroach on us. And this is kind of the same view, kind of down at the bottom end of 48, looking straight to the south there. So his driveway kind of comes and clips right along the limits of our property. We got to confirm if it actually is in our property or not. Due to the slope of Much driveway. It's pretty crazy. We're probably just gonna write him like an access easement for that. We will probably ask him to remove the shed though, just because he's gonna have to deal with the HOA and that'll be a little bit more of a contention, I think. So, yeah. This is the view looking from 4849 down toward Turk Hill. So this is the view off the back of this townhouses down to that other apartment complex. Again, we're gonna be clearing the 20 feet of my backyard space and then just what we need to do to catch grade back here. This is the view from the north end. This isn't on this little sheet now, but the other building. Looking again over down toward Turk Hill. This view is over internal. This is over by lot 71, looking over the existing kind of wooded conservation easement between section 4 and section 3. So that's all pretty much staying. I mean, right here, we're gonna kind of catch with grade and obviously clear a little bit down the slope. But all that wooded area between us is gonna stay. So it very well screens between the two sections. This is standing under the power lines over on the High Point 300 building land bank parking area that under the power lines north of the site. Look, again, looking at Mr. Rueda's house, and then we'll have townhouses kind of to the right behind those tree lines. This is the same location, but looking to the east down through the overhead power line. So again, we can see how much distance we got covered on just our property alone. I mean, we're talking about doing development past that next tower in the background. This is at the existing road stub to sections 2 and 3. You can see where it's already kind of cleared there. Again, we're going to try and save as many of those really tall trees in the middle as we possibly can. We're going to try and tighten up all the grading there. So this is approximately the intersection that we will be constructing in between sections 2 and 4. So this is looking in section 3. So the apartment building basically sits along the left side there and then kind of wraps to the right. And this is looking up where the road stub would be. So again, lots of existing vegetation through here that we're going to screen. And this is looking down back into the central wooded wetland area towards section 4. So again, you really can't see much at all. These was something else that the planning board asked for. This is just a overlay between our current layout and what we had last approved with the apartment units. So the red is the old layout and the black is everything current. So it's very close to what we had before. The kind of the big differences here is there's a little bit more red shown just northeast of our intersection. That's some of the grading that we're going to tighten up because those are some of the trees that we want to save. We were saving them before, more or less have the same grading configuration. So we are going to get some of those back. And then there's a little bit more clearing the southeast corner there, just again, where we had to incorporate a stormwater facility. We're going to townhouse units, we get a little bit more footprint than with the apartment buildings, but you know, it's trade-offs. And then the kind of section 3, it's pretty much the same exact footprint. We're still going to use a retaining wall at the eastern end of that parking lot to try and pick up, 4 to 6 feet of grade, so we don't have to chase our way up the hill at all. This is section 4 overlay. This one's a little bit more different, obviously, because we went from, again, the 61 apartment units across the 3 buildings down to the 40-ish townhouse units over here. So again, we expanded our development footprint, reduced the density, create a little more a community feel. So obviously we're clearing a little bit more. That's why we're trying to do the site walk and really focus on that neighbor and just, make sure that we can come to something amenable. I mean, other alternatives, plantings, we can do something, evergreens probably get eaten by the deer. If we're going to do something, probably be like a deciduous, something viney, just, something that would grow in thick, but it'd still be, you're looking through vines to some extent. I'm not going to be able to block out the whole thing. And if this was zoned residential, I wouldn't be doing it. It'd be a townhouse unit. I'd be complying with all the setback units. It'd basically be allowed. This is an elevation of the apartment building. So 4 stories, peaked roof, kind of same idea. It's still Hanlon Architects, still trying to have a lot of the architectural feel and flair. This isn't just a brick monolithic building with no style. It does have an underground parking area. I believe close to 100 parking spaces. The idea is basically that every unit has covered parking. Inside's ADA accessible. There's additional parking spaces outside. Everybody gets at least 2 additional visitor ADA spaces. And then the townhouse units, it's a Rod Homes product, so color is gonna be chosen by the owner when they build it. Basically, it's a typical townhouse style unit. And the goal of this is really to, with the townhouse units, was to really try and minimize our impacts to the site. It is a compact design right now, you know, when we came in, we were like, okay, you know, we're looking at potentially not doing sidewalks. That's something the board's pushed back on, so we may add a little bit more width along the roads. The trouble with that, as soon as we do that, we're starting to chase ourselves down the hill for grading and steep slopes. So we're trying to strike a balance of fitting the development inside the context of the site while protecting as much of the environmental resources as possible and keeping it safe.
One of the sidewalks where the townhouses are?
Yeah, so basically, once you get to that first unit, we'll probably look at doing some kind of concrete sidewalk. The thought is we'll probably push the internal buildings down the slope back about 10 feet. And then that way we can fit 5 foot gap and a 5 foot sidewalk while still providing the same driveway space for them. It just pushes everything 10 feet.
Closer to the parking lots.
Yeah, exactly. You know, the 100 unit apartment building, that doesn't require anything to change. For sidewalks, we already have sidewalks in the front of this. And then this one, kind of same idea. We'll probably take those 2 center buildings, shove them up 10 feet where it's not gonna really affect anybody. And kind of just fit some sidewalks in. That way, if a townhouse owner wants to go out and walk to their neighbor's house up here, they have a established thing. This is all gonna be owned by the HOA, including the private drive. And then for section 2, they'll basically own from the T and the intersection up the drive and then to the overhead power line right away. Everything else is going to be maintained by Commercial Street Partners, so that'll be section 1, the clubhouse, 100 unit apartment area, all the woods, primarily all the conservation easements and stuff that we're gonna reestablish. That's kind of my big high level review. I did get your guys' meeting minutes, so let me go through your comments that you brought up then, and then if you guys got anything else, we can talk about whatever you want. So first one was conservation easement. The intent is what we were planning on doing last time, which is we're gonna dissolve all the easements out here. Everything was established, including access and utility easements back from the original townhouse layout. So we're gonna just dissolve basically everything up here and then reestablish all the boundaries. Conservation easement, we're gonna try and match exactly what we did in terms of area. Basically just capture all the wooded area, all the big center areas, the wooded vegetation to remain there. There's some other wetland mitigation stuff that we did when we built Bill across this road. That's just south of that. And then obviously everything internal to the site, all the wooded areas east of the office buildings, west of section 1. So that'll all be put back into conservation easements. Steep slopes, yep, we're, gonna pay special attention to that. Obviously, we've been doing development out here for a long time. We know we've had good success stabilizing the 2-on-1 slopes out here without any issues when we've done that on the office buildings and the rest of the area. Obviously, we want to be as flat as we can for mowing and maintenance, things of that nature. Just for HOA maintenance, stuff like that. You can hear a lot from them. Timing of work, if we can get, depending on when we get through the process, we'd probably be starting with the townhouse sections first. That would probably be sometime in the summer. Basically, we need to cut those sections down. Earth from those sections goes to section 1 and then to section 3. So we have the sites all at approximate balance between, mass, select earth. We do have excess topsoil, which is typical of everything. So goal is to basically limit any sort of, truck traffic to the greatest extent possible. Tree clearing, I think the intent will be, because of this, is we'll probably end up staking this out. Whether it's, our office as surveyors or, coming up with some kind of, site walk and basically identifying trees, once we're getting to that point. If there's some specific tree that's, a foot or two out of thing, maybe we can make a field adjustment to save the type of thing. But there will be a lot of attention paid to the vegetation, I think, when we're clearing this. Those planting plans, yep, we provided plantings kind of consistent with the town guidance and consistent with what we were always been doing before. We do have some mass planting areas. We're not trying to do the but it was like little reed plantings and things. We're gonna just plant little groupings of trees on there and get the areas to grow in. There's some in section one, and then we're gonna have some just to the west of that road stuff between that and the woods. We're gonna kind of fill that back in. That was all graded out and brought in for fill, because that the whole wooded area basically drained through a wetland, through that tributary that kind of runs down and then to the, Francis Road old property before they subdivided it. So when we built that, we disturbed a lot of wetlands. We went through the mitigation process with the DEC. This mitigation was completed in like 2018. We started this back in, I think, like 2012 when High Point Drive was built, because we wanted to get into there to do the fills from some of the road earthwork. And at that time, we did all that mitigation and monitoring. That's all been done and completed. Basically, we're not touching that again. The northern long-eared bat, that no longer shows up anywhere. In the AF when we trigger, so for seeker regulations, that's all you need to do. If the EAF says it doesn't happen anymore, it's no longer required. If depending on timing, I think at this point, obviously, we probably wouldn't hit the deadline this year anyways, just pending board approvals and meetings. I mean, we're not gonna be through preliminary. But maybe depending on the timing of that, maybe we're get closer to the fall if the process plays out. You talk about the open space provision. I don't know how you want to qualify that, since typically you put the open space in some kind of easement. I do know we're at 80% green space for this lot. So we're well above that, and I'd like to think that the conservation easement would get to that 50%, but I don't believe. I'm not 100% sure on that. We can obviously coordinate that, but if I don't believe we were given a conservation easement over like the NIPA power line easement, but obviously that's all green space in our minds. So it's kind of, and it's not something that we can really develop. It's gonna always be. We can't do too much anything until that sides, access parking, because you're not gonna build any structure. Victor Hiking Trail. So we met with the Victor Hiking Trail Parks and Rec, Brian Ellison, Dave Wright, a couple other guys. They're actually gonna site and build the trail network out here for us. So we're happy to work with that. I've already interfaced with the Rinaldi's on the office building part. They're basically gonna build a stacked loop through that whole interior. So they're gonna have, in addition to the trails that would go along the road at the upper portion of High Point Drive, there's gonna be basically loops through there for bikes and different elevations and stuff. We're gonna have two stubs like we've always planned that tie down into the eastern portion of High Point Drive. We've also committed to helping Parks and Rec build a little parking area down at section 1 somewhere to allow them to put maintenance vehicles there or just have trail users park for a period of time. And then we're also going to look for their assistance at doing the couple trails we'll have for sections 2 through 4, which is really just kind of around the stormwater facility, and that connection up to the north. Obviously, it's wetland through there, it's a little wet. If they ever wanted to get crazy, they could conceivably do boardwalk type stuff, but that hasn't been part of the conversation. So we're gonna work with them. We're gonna set up a meeting in the springtime, basically walk it. They're gonna kind of site it out. We're gonna walk it with Rinaldi's rep, Chris is wrapping us, and just make sure that we're okay with it and we don't have any issues. And then, at some point, once the process gets done, we'll probably do some kind of easement or survey it to establish whether it's like a blanket easement for access and use of it, or whether it's a specific to following the trail. That we haven't worked on specifics, but obviously we're going to make it public, and it's going to be maintained by the applicant and the larger pieces of the property now by the HOA. For trails in the other areas, because these roads are at 10%, as Victor doesn't plow sidewalks in the winter, and because High Point Drive was not designed with sidewalks in mind, there was always a natural surface trail idea. We're proposing to just do natural surface trails up from the road stubs into the development, but then we'll have sidewalks in the area. And the idea is if it's the middle of winter, you're not going out and walking down a 10% sidewalk. It's not ADA compliant, and B, it's owned by the HOA, and there's just too many issues with that.
Yeah.
If you want to park and go to the visitor spaces, you could go over to the other HOA areas, park, and then walk on the sidewalks. And then same thing down for the clubhouse. There's plenty of visitor spaces designed there to help people traverse the site. Obviously, in the summertime, the trail network is gonna probably be used pretty extensively. And it should. And then number 8, the proximity to single family homes. I think I kind of covered that with this exhibit, so I'm happy to kind of go into any sort of depth you guys want.
So this is the last section, right? This is the actions.
Yeah.
Maybe it.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, this is the last thing in High Point Business Park to be developed.
You mentioned, Phil, maybe for the maybe the apartment in section 3. That you brought it in or you took it out? Which one was it? Sorry, it was earlier.
It got brought in
Brought
already,
in.
yeah, so we cleared that out. I don't know, I think some of the fill initially came when High Point Drive was constructed. I do know additional fill was brought in there when High Point 300 was just constructed. Obviously, at that time, it was all owned by the Rinaldis, and we were doing earthwork to balance the whole site.
Yeah.
Well back. I mean, Earth has never left the site as far as I know in terms of select fill yet, so.
And I guess that strategy will continue throughout where you're not expecting much to leave or.
Yeah, we're
be
at
brought in.
like, yeah, we're like short like a 1,000 or 2,000 cubic yards without factoring in utility excavation stuff. So we're well above, or we're very close to a select earth balance. Yeah, like I said, we will have excess topsoil because typically we strip a foot and then you only put about 6 inches back.
Mhm.
Just especially in the wooded areas, you get so much just vegetation and, you know, stuff that will decompose. We got to get it out of there.
That apartment building sits in the valley, kind of up there, the L-shaped apartment building.
Yeah, the L-shaped apartment building sits in the valley, so I think this is the best
Yeah.
picture, and that, let me just get up, so your apartment building. Roof of it's basically gonna sit like this,
Mhm.
an angle, so this balloon is the center of that. Front building, and the other balloon is the center of that building, it's basically that L shape right there.
Okay. Are you cutting into the slope?
So we've already cleared up to the wetland limits here, because we filled that up from that.
Yeah.
We've cleared back to where we thought we were gonna clear a little bit more into the slope, and that's where we're gonna have a wall kind of at the end of that.
Okay, so you're gonna put a retaining wall in?
Yeah, we basically got a retaining wall here.
Okay.
That's gonna basically let us capture and preserve this vegetation between those two sections.
And you had to clear some trees out over there? On that edge where the retaining wall will go in?
Yeah, we'll be cutting back a little bit into that slope based on what it is today.
You gotta have that much parking for code, probably.
Yeah, it's two per unit. I think we're right at 200. I don't think we actually even have visitor spaces over there.
Bring that back.
Yeah, but two spaces per unit is a good number to use, especially for something like this.
You mentioned HOA land.
Mhm.
Do you have a view of what? You know,
That thin red outline around so all the individual townhouse lots are outlined in red, and then kind of there's that other red outline. That's the HOA limits.
okay, and then you also mentioned conservation easements, the idea of, you know, in the future having them.
Yeah, so today, this basically whole swath through here exists in a conservation easement. That's gonna be maintained.
Okay, so that won't be abolished.
No, I don't think we need to abolish it. We'll obviously maybe just change the, I don't know if it needs to be abolished if it's part of the whole set, if everything was filed at once. But yes, we're gonna maintain this one basically exactly as is. We're gonna maintain this one across here in this wooded area as is. Then we're gonna dissolve the ones up here. We're gonna reestablish one here through this middle area and then through this wooded area. Basically, everything else on our site that we're maintaining, we're gonna put back in a conservation easement.
Okay, yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, we love conservation easements, you know, be mindful, and you've done enough work in Victor where you know where, you know, the code requires the markings and, you know, some of those plots look kind of tricky, to be in compliance. But,
Yeah, and what we'll do, there isn't actually an easement plan as part of the preliminary set. But what we did for section 1, if you look at those plans, we have an easement plan that basically calls out exactly, on a clean plan, what's going on. We're gonna do the same thing for these other sections, so that when we submit our finals, it'll be very clear, what's going on. We didn't want to do it, get commentaries back, like move sanitary out of the road, so that changes where all the easements and right here are gonna be, so.
The conservation easement's gonna include those two power lines or were those power?
No, we can't put a conservation easement over it because the power authority has the rights to basically do whatever they want.
Yeah, okay.
You mentioned wetlands being for remediation, but then when we were discussing the retaining wall and that townhome unit, you mentioned wetlands again. So are there,
This is perfect. So, sorry. So it's kind of the darker dash line, that's existing wetlands, federal wetlands, been that way forever. This all used to kind of drain through here. So when we built High Point Drive and when they were doing the other things, we put in this, I think it's a 30-inch culvert and did all this fill. And for the area that we, disturbed the wetlands here, this is the only wetland disturbance on the whole project. They built this, this is a constructed wetland. And so that's what we built and then went through the whole DEC process with monitoring. There's no wetland disturbances at all.
Okay.
Get in my head, soil, water, trees,
yeah,
covered.
give a checklist?
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, and it's from an every too, so,
If you guys want, depending on what changes, I'm certainly happy to come back. This is the final, and I can give you like, here's what we changed, and here's the differences, and I'll have the easement plan, we can talk about
Right.
conservation easements specifically if you want at that
And
point.
the site walk will be helpful, which.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that'll be.
Picking up dates right now.
yeah, because I think just seeing the topography and the steep slopes and where, that's hard to do with this meeting, for me at least.
Yep.
So that will certainly be helpful.
Does Monday or Tuesday at all work for you guys next week? And be all on one spot.
I guess what time, Monday, Tuesday?
We had talked maybe like 4:35 if that works for you guys or earlier.
Yeah, I mean, I'm at the planning board on Tuesday, so if you want to do it between that and the 7 o'clock meeting, and that'd be perfect for me.
Yeah, 4:35 works on Monday. Tuesday I'll have. Fire department meeting.
Monday's a nice day.
Monday's the next day.
Weather is
Supposed to
nice.
be nice.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh,
I could make Monday work, Monday the 9th.
That work for you?
Yeah, next Monday.
Yeah, because our meeting's on Tuesday the 10th.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I mean, if that works for the rest of the board members and stuff, I'm happy.
I can reach out to the planning board too. A few of them could do Monday. So if it works for you guys,
works.
for most of you.
That works. Yeah. Just with your 9 notes, if there's anything while we have you here, James. Yeah.
But that was very thorough. Many times. Preemptively addressed a lot of the stuff that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I apologize for not being here last time. I do appreciate you guys issuing a recommendation, even though you were here.
Like, don't stop them, but.
It's fine. But there wasn't
Tell them to
anything
come
that happened
back.
at the meeting anyways. We understand we're gonna have a couple, especially at this point, when we're talking through the main changes in the project, in the apartments.
So much more helpful with the color that you gave them. So.
We do have some members of the town here. I don't know, David, if you have any thoughts to add or?
I'm just curious, James. Property, who owns the property next to you over there? You know, I mean, Is a group of people, a private
Let's see
person?
what this requires.
Is it a farm?
This is, and I'm not gonna be able to read it.
Oh, it's all right. I was just curious.
Jeanette Rose Family Trust. So probably Francis's sister.
Oh, it's a sister.
Yeah. They have a lot of land over this area. Yeah, and then that, you can kind of see just the very south angle point on that drawing. Where the property kind of kicks back to the
Right.
west. That's the parcel that got subdivided south of us. That used to be Francis Road into those townhouses or into the new single family homes. Yeah, so in those kind of the meadow areas is where you can kind of see the subdivisions of the lots that we penciled in there.
So that's the townhomes on, I guess that's the east side.
Mhm.
Then they're pretty close to the, also to the property line. About 20 foot.
No, they're all complying with the setbacks. I mean, I believe we're 40 or 50 feet back there. There's a drainage swale that we're cutting in behind those lots that takes a little bit of the runoff at those and then, bypasses it around their side.
You have some scouts here, just observing for a badge or something, or?
Yeah, they're doing some learning. For a requirement, but
Cool.
some questions later, but. Appreciate you guys letting us listen in.
Sure.
Very neat, very cool. Okay, so I think, yeah, we'll see more of you on Monday for the site walk. But thankful, or, thank you for the, your knowledge on the project, certainly a big project. I'll make sure we do it right.
My last legacy project from forever ago that's just been passed down. Although I've been doing this one since we started back in like 2017. And I've been involved with enough of the retail stuff before that, so.
Cool.
It'll be nice once it's finally built.
Yeah.
Getting it approved.
Yeah. That's why when I said, is this the last one?
I hope so.
Yes, it is.
I've always wondered how many meetings I've actually been at or went to Valentine. No, you guys can keep that or. Perfect. Well, thank you guys all very much. We'll see you guys for hopefully next week for the second one.
Awesome.
Go from there.
See you
Thanks.
Monday.
That's good.
You too.
The other item of business is the approval of the February 17th, 2026 meeting minutes. For the circulated prior to the board meeting. I reviewed, I had no comments.
So
I'll
we'll
leave it up to the board.
I'll make a motion, we accept those.
Right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Right. Remember the town board here, anything we should be aware of?
Biggest update is,
It's salt, right?
oh yes, well, I was looking forward to the exciting updates,
Oh,
but salt, we're very, very short.
We don't need it.
It is gonna be warm,
Good.
so that's gonna knock on wood, it stays warm. But yes, salt, again, same as last year, like we had this problem last year again with American Rock Salt. We were on a 2-year contract with them through the county bid. So unfortunately, we're kind of with them again this year, and they have not been able to deliver in the timely manner that is stipulated in their contract. So the highway department has been conserving salt. They have been going to, you'll notice at times, just intersections. We're learning the amount that they are doing. But it so far, I think, has been okay for a lot of our roads. Knock on wood, we have not seen many, we haven't really seen like a crazy influx in like cars and ditches or crashes because it was icy. And so that's is the plus there. I know, I think it was 490 the other day. Some people had like, a few people had comments about 490. Was that one's not us. That one is actually state DOT.
Yeah.
And then I actually ended up driving that little stretch of 490. I said, listen, I was on it myself and it was very slippery. I know.
Yeah.
It was not our.
I know what you're talking.
And the exciting things
Yeah.
that are happening in town. Been working on replacement of the playground over at Dry Road Park. It should be getting delivered, they said March 11th. It's gonna take delivery dates to say hopefully, set as March 11th, but then installation is TBD on the weather. And so a good spring means it's in the ground quick. If not, let's wait a little bit longer.
Cool.
So, does anybody have any questions for Captain Town Board?
Whose equipment's going into Dry Road?
Oh,
Like local, is it?
it's game time through MRC.
I don't
Yeah.
know if they do anything that big.
I don't think they do this one, not that like it's really like custom, but I've seen they do some towns, like I know the one in West Bloomfield last year, a little bit smaller. We put out a bid, probably like August of last year. We got 8 companies to come back with 12 different designs. And so Game Time was the one who originally had done the playground over there. We interviewed, and by we I mean myself, Dirk from the Park Advisory Committee and Brian from Parks and Rec, interviewed 4 companies, it was either 4 or 3, and then whittled it down to Game Time. So we got a lot of new stuff coming into the playground, a lot of new accessible features. We're actually gonna be expanding the footprint there. We're in kind of like a tight spot if you know where it is, because you got the hill right there. But we're gonna be going a little bit further back to increase the layout there. What we can, yeah. And more shade coming, everyone shade. And that's a mom of 2 young kids, shade as well for me.
Yeah.
To sit down while they play.
Yeah. What are you gonna do, like a pavilion or something?
We've got like the pavilion on the side there, but we're gonna be doing like some benches with like the metal overhang there. We still have the large trees there. So as much as we can, there are some air like on the actual playground itself, we try to make it kind of look like a tree house in certain areas. So there'll be different like slants and whatnot to kind of help with that.
Very neat. Cool.
Cool. Anything else?
Thank you.
Alright, so that was all we had for today's agenda. I have a motion
to adjourn. I'll make a
adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
Alright, second. Alright, alright, we will adjourn the meeting at 7:19.
I just thought, that's why I forgot. Mark your calendar for July 2nd, it's not repeated again. Next meeting is going to be the kickoff to our summer concert series, but also we're gonna be doing a big celebration for America 250. So I'm obsessed with it, and we're talking about the fireworks at our next town board meeting, so that's just me.
So doing it